Schmoes Know presents HorrorFlix, a podcast covering all things horror, suspense, and psychological thrillers in the world of cinema. And now, here are your hosts, Cobbster and Cody.
What's up, horror fans? Welcome back to another episode of HorrorFlix. So we're just kind of switching things up a little bit here, stuttering. Cody is not here. He, I don't know what happened to him. I think the bedtime story from last week scared him a little bit too much. So I recruited two new members. One person who I've had on before, Alicia Malone. Say hello, Alicia.
Hello, Alicia Malone.
You guys know who Alicia is. She's been on the show once before. Not really a huge horror fan, but that's okay. That's totally fine. And someone new to the table. You might know him for doing some like comedy stuff here and there. He does this one show called the Joe Schmoe Show, or
Schmoes Know.
Schmoes Know, and that is one Mark Ellis. What's up, dude?
I'm very excited to be here, even in the absence of Cody. I hope I can fill his shoes adequately.
I think you might do one better. You guys pronounce names just a little bit better than both of us do, so it'll be fine. So yeah, I have. It's a special episode. Cody couldn't make it out. We're gonna have these guys here. We're gonna be talking about horror comedies, which is gonna be a lot of fun. But before we get into that, this is Mark's first time. We asked Alicia a lot of these same questions. So Mark, you're a big horror fan.
Love horror movies. I've loved them since I was a little kid. I think that the reason why I love them so much, at least when I was a kid, is that it was the way for me and my older sister, who's 2 years older than me, to bond. Because, you know, you always have sibling rivalries and stuff like that, but we would always stay up late at night together and watch, like, USA would always have scary horror movies. Yeah. Or HBO or something really late at night, and we would just get scared together, and it's like, man, we were in the trenches. We're going to be mad at each other about something stupid the next day, but for that night, when It's Alive, the movie about a killer baby, comes on, we're just keeping each other sane. So I have a lot of good memories watching horror movies with her.
Nice. And what would you say is like your favorite horror film of all time?
My favorite horror movie of all time is The Exorcist.
Yes.
I think that's the best horror movie of all time. The one that maybe most personal to me is a favorite is Stephen King's Pet Sematary.
You always speak so highly of this movie.
And I'll tell you what, it's because when I was a kid, I have an older sister and a younger brother, and we were visiting my grandparents, and my aunt was around, and so my parents went out to dinner with my grandparents, and my aunt was left babysitting us. Robbie my younger brother was too sick. He wasn't feeling well, so he couldn't go to the movies. Yeah. Which was my aunt's plan. She's like, what am I going to do with these three monsters? I know, I'll take them to the movies. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was playing, and she was going to take us to see that. But Robbie was sick, and she would feel so bad if she took me and my sister to see the Indiana Jones movie, and Robbie had to miss it. So she's like, well, is there anything else playing? And me and my sister saw Pet Sematary was playing. Oh, my gosh. And we somehow talked my aunt. I was like 8 years old at the time, and my sister was 10. We somehow convinced her that it would be cool with my mom and dad for us to go see this horror film in the theater. She took us. We were so scared out of our minds, but we had such a good time watching it too. Yeah. Which is like why you love horror movies. Yeah. You can't really quantify what it is. It's like, I'm going to go to this thing and I'm going to get scared and I'm going to lose sleep and I'm going to feel really weird, but I need that feeling. Yeah. Like I want that to happen.
Absolutely.
To feel alive.
To feel alive again. It's full, like, I tell people this all the time and I think I'm so weird. Like, I love going to the movie theaters and then going home and being terrified of walking around the corner and going to look in my closet to check to see if just to check to see if there's anything in there, and have that like paranoid feeling of being just scared the whole time.
That's the worst thing. That's why I hate horror films. It's because afterwards I think it's going to happen to me. But I do like the feeling that you survived something together, particularly with the audience. When you walk out, that moment of like, whew. Yeah. Wow, that was scary. Yeah, I like that.
And that's why, like, even, you know, Pet Sematary is probably not going to be on anybody's list of the top 5 greatest horror movies of all time. Right. But something like The Shining, I never saw that in the theater, and it's a very scary movie to watch at home. Yeah. But I didn't get that community experience, like something like Pet Sematary or The Ring. In 2003, my sister and I were both home from college at the time, and it was a rainy day, and we decided to drive to Newport News to go see it. And when we walked out of the theater, it felt like we were in Seattle because it was raining. Yeah. That movie freaked me out. Me and my good friend, really funny comedian Eliza Schlesinger, we went to go see Drag Me to Hell together in the theater, which is kind of like a horror comedy when you look back on it. But that night, it was all scares. We were terrified out of our minds after that movie.
Yeah, anything you get with Sam Raimi, you're gonna kind of get. There's gonna be like, it's like the horror comedy, but the horror aspect of it is really frightening, but still a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, when you're laying in bed afterwards, you're not thinking about the laughs you had during the movie. You're thinking about that old woman who keeps racking her nails on the desk.
And well, we are going to be talking about comedy today because I want to do it because you are a comedian. I thought it would be fitting, get some jokes in there, some funny stuff. Because me and Cody aren't that funny. We just like sit here and we cry about each other.
But can I say, and I know I speak for Alicia too, I was really impressed, and I'm on record as saying this with what you guys did with Severance. I thought that was such a cool,
very much.
original thing, and I'm so glad that it's on the SK podcast channel that our fans can check it out. If you haven't watched it yet, definitely make sure you make a point.
And keep making these
Thank
movies,
you.
you guys, because you've got a lot of talent. Especially with horror, so keep going.
Yeah, that's the next plan, to do horror. Well, actually, you know what's funny? There's actually a British horror comedy called Severance too that I thought you guys were referring to. That's
right.
There is. I saw some people on here like, oh, they what? Oh, it's a British horror comedy. Okay, all right, very nice. But no, it's actually funny. You tell the story of you going to the movie theaters and watching horror films with your sister. I was always afraid of horror films for the longest time, and it was horror comedy that sort of got me into horror films, because I tell the story all the time that one of the first horror films I remember watching as a kid is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, which is infamously known as one of the gayest horror films of all time.
One of the gayest.
One of the gayest, because there's a lot of undertones that go in there, and if you watch it, it's very, very funny. There's like a weird sexual dynamic between Freddy and the person that he's trying to like take over.
When he says, "You have the body, I have the brain."
Exactly. You get it? Yeah. So you got to I respect horror films for that, because like I watched it for the first time and like, okay, not all of these things are absolutely terrifying, but we can actually have fun with horror films. And I think that's one of the cool things about it, is that we can, laugh while all these disturbing things are actually happening. Almost poking fun.
Comedy is a great gateway into horror because, like you said, like especially something like Nightmare on Elm Street, where Freddy basically turned into a stand-up comedian.
Absolutely.
After a while in those movies. One of the ways that I always trick myself into going to bed when I was a kid or as an adult last week is because you think of all these scary images. I would always think about Freddy and Jason and Dracula and Frankenstein's monster and the Mummy and all of these evil villains hanging out at a party together.
Yeah.
And like, what do they talk about during their downtime? And it'd be like a bunch of comics shooting the shit, you know? Like Darth Vader would be talking to Jason, and they're just like, yeah, dude, I had 3 last week. Just these teenagers are so stupid.
I would love that. That'd actually be a great concept for a horror film. Instead of
a horror comedy.
One of the things that I was going to bring up in the news story is that they're remaking Nightmare on Elm Street again for the second time. And it's unnecessary, because you think with any remake these days, why do it? Maybe nostalgia, obviously money. With horror films, they make a lot of money, but there's really no point. But then an idea like that of bringing like Pinhead, Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers all in one room for like a What We Do in the Shadows type of comedy would be really amazing to see.
I think something like what action movies have done with the Expendables, or even if you look in the bigger landscape of film with the DC shared universe or the Marvel shared universe, that's why they're remaking Nightmare on Elm Street again, is because they want to keep rebooting until they get it right, because eventually you can have Freddy versus Jason again, which I think is we talked about this on Collider Movie Talk, because John Campea didn't think you'd ever see another Freddy versus Jason, and then me and John Schnepp kind of convinced them like that's definitely going to happen again.
I think so.
They're two iconic characters, and the first film just didn't do it right.
But would you prefer to see an original film using that same concept, or you want to see Freddy in particular?
I think both, because I think the problem with a lot of horror films today is that we haven't got that new monster, that new slasher. Like the last one I can really think of is like Toby from Paranormal Activity, or even like Jigsaw from Saw, like an iconic monster movie kind of character. Why not just create something new as opposed to just going back? But again, I would like if you told me that tomorrow that the remake for Nightmare on Elm Street was bringing back Robert Englund, you've got me a little bit more sold, because that's the only person that has ever played Freddy Krueger.
And it's not just Freddy. There's so many things about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise that are just so iconic and terrifying. And even with the remake, what I loved about it was the trailer, first of all, because I love the reveal. I love watching it, and you see, oh, there's this guy, and it's like, oh my God, that's the hat, that's the sweater. Yeah. You hear that music, that 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. There's so much good stuff about that.
Yeah.
And I was so terrified of Nightmare on Elm Street when I was young, and definitely they look at these titles for marketing value.
Yeah.
I mean, nostalgia. So people like us will go and see it because it's got the name, the title.
Right. And I was never the biggest Friday the 13th fan. I didn't really care about Jason that much, but Freddy is what I think deserves more shots at the big screen.
Yeah.
Jason is just a one-note guy, and he's this kid. He was a horrible swimmer. He drowned.
Yeah,
and he comes back to life, and he haunts kids at a camp. But Freddy, that concept of somebody who can kill you in your dream. It's very meta. It's very Inception.
It is.
Almost,
it's very well. I mean, Wes Craven, you're gonna get some meta stuff in there for sure.
Yeah.
And have you seen the documentary on Nightmare on Elm Street? I'm sure there's multiple ones, but there's one that shows like the whole landscape of the entire franchise, and he tells a story of how he came up with Freddy Krueger, and it's terrifying. It's absolutely like the image of him when he was a kid. He looked out his room into an alleyway, and he just saw a dude with a Christmas sweater and like a hat on, and he like looked up at him, and it was like something in his eyes that shined that he just saw Freddy, and it scared him. He went back, and then he came back out the door to see if he was gone, and the dude was like standing right there just staring back at him. Very, very creepy. Yeah. So I recommend anybody out there, I think we talked about it last week too, you check out this documentary. I forget what it's called, but it's like 3 hours long, and it was right before the remake came out, and it's incredible. It's really cool.
That sounds interesting. Yeah, Freddy is such a scary character. I mean, even Simpsons episodes where they spoofed Nightmare on Elm Street, I still found those scary.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. And then Wes Craven, also another great franchise he was able to launch in the horror comedy vein would be the Scream movie.
Scream.
Absolutely.
I loved Scream.
Yeah, a lot of people brought up Scream too, and because that's the thing, because you look back on it now, I watched another documentary on that movie, and what Wes Craven had to do for that was he had to pitch to the studio that it was a comedy before a horror film, because they just weren't buying the whole concept of it all. And so when it actually came out, it's like, this is probably one of the greatest horror films of all time.
Yeah, and I love the way that they turn all the horror tropes on its ear with Jamie Kennedy's character, and like, oh no, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, and it was a really cool way to do it. But again, you also had an antagonist who could crack jokes. I mean, obviously the Ghostface isn't running around doing it as he's killing people, but behind the scenes, when you realize who's pulling the strings on that character, it's the funniest guy in the movie.
It's really smart, the whole franchise. I loved Scream so much.
Yeah.
And it also terrified me. I couldn't sleep that night after I first saw it. I decided I wasn't going to eat after I saw it because I was so scared.
No more Jiffy Pop for Alicia.
Never. Yeah, I did not. That's where I learned about that. We don't have that kind of popcorn.
It's the hardest kind of popcorn
Australia.
to make. It's and it's a fun thing to do. You cook it over the oven, but it's I've never had Jiffy Pop that has not been burned at the core.
And that whole scene, I mean, that was a similar kind of thing to Psycho, where you think that Drew Barrymore is going to be the star of the movie, and then all of a sudden she gets killed in the first act.
Right.
And you're like, whoa, anything can happen now.
And that sort of became like a trope throughout the whole franchise, because I know a lot of people were mixed on like the later films that came out. I actually love the entire franchise, even the fourth film too. I think is a lot of fun. But one of the cool things about it is how every single intro has like some kind of famous actor or actress being killed at the very start.
I didn't love the fourth movie at all. I was pretty let down by that. It was nice bringing Courtney Cox back and seeing all of them back. Even Scream 3, which I think got panned by critics. There's one scene that just still terrifies me to this day.
The mother scene.
Of her dead mother walking towards her, and she's walking towards the camera.
Scariest thing in the whole franchise.
To this day, that and the scariest thing of all time that I've ever seen in any movie is Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Is the nun.
Yeah.
The nun wearing the away uniform, and she just keeps the all white uniform.
Yes, yeah.
And she keeps popping up at random places, and you find out who she is at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And she's very different than what you would expect. But just that image is just maybe because I went to Catholic school for a long time, so I have the thing against nuns anyway, but it is still to this day the scariest thing I've ever seen.
And can I say one of the scariest moments for me in the whole Scream franchise was Scream 2 with the movie theater.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think about that every single time I
Right.
go to the bathroom during the movie, that I'm suddenly going to get stabbed through the ear.
Yeah. Never put your ear against the bathroom stalls.
And,
Never.
and that was, again, another clever layer on top of layer on top of layer. And I think that's what horror comedies do really well, is they can talk about horror while also being really scary at the
right.
same time.
Well, while Scream is a little bit more serious, but it's still very funny as well. Like you said, like the killer himself is actually cracking jokes as things are going. And I'll say this too, and I've been saying this almost every single week. The Scream TV series is actually pretty good.
Is it?
It's a guilty pleasure. It's not. It's okay. I won't say that it's good, but I'm like hate watching. I hate in the fact that I'm actually caring for certain characters that are in the show. It's not the best acting. Granted, it's MTV, but what they do is like they take the meta-ness from Scream, but they kind of shove it down your throat a little bit. It's like exposition. Like the very first episode was great because there's one main character who's like Jamie Kennedy, and he's like they wouldn't be able to do a horror movie into a TV show because then you'd have to do all this. You have to build it up. You have to kill off everyone, and so it's self-aware in that sense. But I'm like hate watching it almost right now. So it's a lot of fun. I want to ask you guys: have you guys ever seen Scary Movie? The first one?
I saw parts of the first one, and that was less me not liking the horror comedy genre and more me just lamenting what has happened to spoof movies.
Me too.
Because I think the Wayans have a lot of talent, and
Right.
and I don't pin it all on them, but that was when spoof movies to me shifted from actually being funny into just being a pop culture of the week reference, where it's no longer funny setup jokes. It's just who's in the news that we can make fun of right now.
Right,
And let's
right.
do that. And our entire movie is going to be dated in 6 months. Now, the first Scary Movie actually has a lot of redeeming qualities to it.
Yeah.
But every subsequent Scary Movie turned more and more into
got
like
worse
a
and worse.
Meet the Spartans, not another teenage
Yeah.
movie kind of thing.
I actually do enjoy the first two a lot. More so the first one because it's a lot more subtle, and the second one takes it like a little bit too extreme. And there's kind of a running joke between me and Cody because he loves it too, where there's one scene in Scary Movie where they're making fun of I Know What You Did Last Summer, where they're all drunk, they hit the guy, and they all get out of the car, and one of the characters finds a boot on the floor, and she's like, "Oh my god, we hit a boot!" And the reaction from one of the actors, he says, he literally responds really quickly in great comedic timing. He's like, "Where's the foot?" And just ever since then, like me and my friends, and even Cody have just always repeated that. I just think that's like one of the funniest things I've ever. It's like you don't think about it. You don't think about the body. She says, "Where's the boot?" He's like, "Where's the foot?" Like just so funny, absolutely funny.
Leslie Nielsen pops up in one of the Scary Movies.
He
I believe.
pops up in 3.
In 3.
Yeah.
Now, a one that not a lot of people have heard of, and if you're talking spoof horror comedy, obviously the king is Young Frankenstein.
Absolutely.
Is the best of all time. Everybody, you should see it if you haven't seen it yet. Leslie Nielsen was in another spoof horror comedy that I needed to see as a kid because The Exorcist got its claws so deep into me psychologically that I was so terrified of it for such a long time. There's a movie that came out in 1989, I believe, that I rented called Repossessed.
Repossessed.
Oh, I've heard of
never-
it and I've never seen that.
It's so Leslie Nielsen is The Exorcist, and Linda Blair reprises her
No
role
way.
as somebody who gets possessed. They did the same style of makeup, and it is just it's a horrible spoof comedy. But at the time, I needed to see it because it's like, oh, finally we can take this scariest concept of all of the devil getting inside a girl. And we can make fun of it, and like I needed to see that movie, so
Make
I
it
don't
less
know if
scary.
it's available. I don't know if you can get it on eBay or on DVD
Yeah.
or it's probably not Netflixable, but it's called Repossessed, and it is a real movie. I
Okay,
promise.
I need to check it out though. If it's Leslie, Leslie
Leslie
Nielsen.
Nielsen,
There
yeah.
you go. There
And,
you go.
and I'd put that up. It's probably not anywhere near as good as far as production values like Scary Movie, but
Right.
I would put that up against Scary Movie and probably get my ass kicked.
There's actually another movie. Someone brought it up in here. I just saw. Do you remember Shriek? It was
Oh,
called
yeah.
Shriek. Oh, there we go. Shriek. If you know what I did last Friday the 13th, it had I'm pretty sure Tom Arnold was in it. And it was almost like Scream. It was right around the time when Scream was coming out, and they were trying to do that. But I think Scream. I mean, it's
like
not
Scary
Scream. Scary
Movie,
Movie.
yeah.
Scary Movie did it a lot better.
Right.
But I remember seeing that one, and one funny scene in particular I remember is when they're like doing the reveal of the mask, and there's just a ton of different masks, and it just becomes this whole gag, and not even masks, but like people's faces that they keep ripping off. I thought that was pretty funny, but it was kind of a failed one. One that I want to bring up that was more recent, I think it came out in 2010, was Cabin in the Woods.
Yes.
That one came out of nowhere.
That's
'Cause
clever.
See the trailers for it. Looks very, very typical. You don't really care too much. It's been on the shelf for a long time. You go and see it, and it is one of the best horror films I've seen in a long time.
I loved watching
Mm-hmm.
Cabin in the Woods because it does fall more into the Scream vein where it is actually it's turning a lot of horror stuff on its side and saying look at it through this angle as opposed to a great horror comedy like American Werewolf in London
Yeah.
or Fright Night where there's a lot of scary stuff and there's funny stuff but they all are in this one universe that you buy into. Cabin in the Woods, the fact that it's these people behind the scenes pulling all the strings.
Yes.
And that elevator scene at the end, when it's every scary thing that you could possibly dream up, all shooting into this room at the same time. I love the way that scene looked.
I love the way that movie was written. It was so clever, and I was relieved when I saw it because I didn't know what I was getting into. I
Yeah.
saw a really early screening. After it had been on the shelf for many
Right,
years.
Right.
But I went to see it, and I thought, oh, this is going to be scary. And then as soon as it was funny, as soon as you saw the reveal that it's
The opening
happening behind,
scene.
I was like, oh, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
I'm into this now because it's funny and I can laugh along with the jokes,
Right.
as well as there was some really scary moments.
That was
Anything that I would pay money to see a movie called Cabin in the Woods if it was just about that.
Right.
There's something about teenagers getting together in the woods and then bad stuff starts happening.
Yeah.
I like that. It's just it's scary and it probably won't stick with me afterwards like another horror movie, but I get a good scare.
Yeah.
And then what that movie did and just took it to such a great level. Richard Jenkins in the
Yes.
being the guy and then watching that go down when they're partying to REO Speedwagon and it's such a funny movie, but it also has some good scares too.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about original concept, and I think it was Joss Whedon wrote it, and then Drew Goddard directed it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think
it was
so.
Chris Hemsworth's first movie he did in the US.
Right,
And
right.
then it sat, apart from the brief cameo in Star Trek.
Oh,
and
that's
then
right,
it just
yeah.
sat there for years, and so it came out after he was Thor.
On our Facebook page, Ryan Martinson says, "The Cabin in the Woods, it was perfect satire of horror movies. If you know horror movies, you get all the references throughout. It's the best satire since Scream, one of his favorite movies in 2010.
Totally
I definitely
agree.
agree.
Definitely.
Definitely agree with that. I'm trying to see. Let's.
Another movie I
you got one?
love is Shaun of the Dead.
Yes, a lot of people brought up Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
It's
Love
a
Shaun
great
of the
horror
Dead.
comedy. Again, it's really funny. It pokes fun at the zombie genre, but at the same time, it does have a few tiny scary moments. But it's probably more in the comedy genre than horror. But I love the way that Edgar Wright directs. I love those fast cuts.
Yeah.
What do they call them? They call it like hip hop editing or something, where it's just like those chung chung chung. It's kind of like what Aronofsky did with Requiem for a Dream, but in a funny way. And Simon Pegg and Nick Frost together was so great. Bill Nye. I love the, grab a cup of tea and just wait till the whole thing blows over.
Yeah.
Really funny movie. That's
So,
one of my faves.
Trying to maintain the relationships that you have with your annoying roommate or with
Yeah.
your best friend or with this girl that you fall in love with and run away from zombies at the same time. One of my favorite scenes in Shaun of the Dead is when they have their crew and it's like 5 or 6 people deep and they're running and then they run into another crew.
Oh,
Yeah.
they're
And
the
it's
exact
crew, and
same.
they just
Yeah.
kind of look at each other
And they pass by like, hello, hi, hello. It's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's such a. I caught it on TV the other day, and it holds up too.
So well.
Yeah.
And it's bloody, too. It's so bloody. I
brutal.
love that it takes
Yes.
the risk like that.
Yeah, and I love there's one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when you don't realize that he doesn't realize that everyone's a zombie because it's kind of like normal. And I think it made a great comment on society. And sometimes I think
absolutely.
about that when I'm, if you're on a bus or if you see a bunch of people just walking around looking at their phones,
Yeah.
you're like, we are zombies now.
Absolutely.
You
No.
see some drunk stumbling out of a bar, and you're like, I assumed they
Yeah.
had too much.
That's
to
what
drink,
it's in.
but-
I love like where they're like "Dibby dibby dibby doo,"
Yeah.
and they look over and he moans. One of my favorite scenes in the whole movie is when there was the recurring gag with the jukebox and how it turns on randomly, and then Queen starts playing,
Right.
and then they start beating the crap out of the zombie to the beat of what song is it? Tonight I'm gonna have myself.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I can't remember the name. Of it.
I can't remember the name, but that's definitely one of my favorite scenes. And then on our Facebook page, Christina Timberlake says Shaun of the Dead is one of my all-time favorite movies. Ever so, of course, it's my favorite horror comedy. The beginning of all the foreshadowing towards the outbreak and Sean not noticing anything is hilarious, especially when he goes to get a drink at the store and does every day and doesn't notice anything that the world is going to shit.
Yeah. It had a Gremlins vibe to me too, which is another, I think, an all-time
Yeah.
classic horror comedy, because what Gremlins was actually able to do, it's more than Nightmare on Elm Street vein, which is where the villain is actually the funniest part of the film as well, because the Gremlins, you just enjoy watching the Gremlins because at their core, they are just these crazed, zombified Muppets.
Yeah.
That, instead of entertaining kids, are out to kill you, but they're having such a blast doing it. Like they're like evil little pets. So you're like, oh, you Gremlin, like one Gremlin wouldn't be horrible, He'd still try to kill you, so you have to keep him caged, but it'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
But when there's too many Gremlins, you have to throw them in the microwave
And they
start
start out
killing them.
so cute, too.
The Mogwais.
Yeah, the
And
Mogwais.
you look at little Gizmo, and it's like, how
Aw.
could you be responsible for
All the
completely
mayhem.
annihilating Kingston Falls?
Right.
And one of the funniest things I've seen in any horror comedy is when they hook up Mrs. Deagle's wheelchair thing.
The
She
stairs, right? And
shoots
shoots out the window.
We saw that as kids, and we rewound that about 50 times in a row, just laughing our ass off.
It is. It's honestly, Joe Dante did this movie too, right? And this is probably one of the best dark comedies, especially that it's in Christmas time.
Yeah,
and that
that
one
story.
scene, that one story she tells about the
Oh.
father
When
and
it
the
just-
It's dark.
like there's no imagery or anything like that, but it's just the story itself is very terrifying.
It just hits the brakes, and Kroll and I have talked about this at length too. I've never seen a movie just totally. It was like somebody else came in for a day, and it's like, let's take this totally seriously. And it's like, what the hell is that doing in there? And we should also give a shout out to your Profiles co-host Scott Mance. Loves Gremlins 2, the new batch, which was more of a like total something spoof. Like Scream or something like that, where it's making fun of the source material.
I hadn't seen that one in a long time, but I do agree that I really enjoy that one. The one thing that is, I talk about this all the time, that spiders are just a no for me. I'd rather be dead than even just like glance at a spider. And when one of the gremlins actually morphs into a spider, it's probably one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. Just disgusting. But I love the puppetry work in both of those movies. And it would make me really sad to see them remake that again, which they probably will, and it probably won't be puppets, and it would be just kind of all special effects.
But I like that we were talking yesterday, Cobbster, about Krampus.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
the movie that's coming out soon.
That looks cool.
It
looks really cool.
And the director is very determined to use the kind of puppetry and stuff that was inspired by Gremlins and movies like that. So hopefully it continues on.
I do think so. Yeah,
that was one of those good surprises when Cobbster, Cody, and I were hunkered down in Hall H during Comic-Con, and you're waiting for all the big, you're waiting for Deadpool and Batman v Superman, all these things, but the Krampus trailer came on, and we all kind of looked at each other, and you could feel it in the Hall H.
Absolutely.
Like, I had no idea this was a movie coming out, but this looks awesome.
Because it's a horror comedy, right?
It's a horror comedy, but the trailer itself was scary. It was pretty terrifying.
It was horrifying, and it's got that like Gremlins. It's got that Christmas season scariness to it, like a Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah, absolutely, right.
Yeah.
So it was really cool too. Rick Baker was like right down a couple rows from us too. That was pretty cool.
We were just kind of all staring at Rick Baker.
You're just
like trying to not take a picture.
Is he approving of all this stuff right now that's going on? Eva Vanis brought up on Facebook another Edgar Wright film, which isn't. I wouldn't necessarily call this a horror film. It's got elements of it, but Hot Fuzz is one of her all-time favorites. Do you guys remember Hot Fuzz?
I love Hot Fuzz. I'd say it's more a spoof of action and buddy cop comedy.
It's just some of the elements in the beginning with all the killer stuff. I think that goes back and forth.
That's true, actually.
I think little subtle hints of horror in there.
That's true. Yeah, the way several things are shot and the tension leading up to it, and I agree.
Yes,
actually,
it
does
got a little
have horror.
And at World's End too.
Yeah.
Yes, a little bit too.
Has that alien
invasion.
The body snatcher kind of War of the Worlds vibe to it, where it's more of a spoof. And actually, some of the action in there, I remember seeing that movie and thinking, if Edgar Wright can do this, he's the right guy to do Ant-Man at the time, because the action was so good in there. But obviously, it's hilarious too. It's such a funny concept.
Yeah, yes. I agree.
Another person brought up, Casey Sitter says on Facebook, not only is this one of my favorite movies, but it's also a great horror comedy, and you brought it up earlier, is American Werewolf in London. Did a great job, guys, and hey, Cobbster, is that a spider on your shoulder? American. No. I have to look. I don't trust anybody.
He's got pretty big shoulders. It's a lot of ground.
It's a lot of ground to cover. But yeah, American Werewolf in London is definitely one of my all-time favorites because I love the dynamic between his dead friend. That he just keeps coming back and haunting him, and I love that he looks worse and worse as he sees him. But still, in that movie, the first time they get attacked by the werewolf is terrifying. It's very, very scary.
Stay off the moors, and you want to talk about great makeup effects? I think Rick Baker did that.
I think
too.
So. Yeah.
And that was one of the ones that me and my sister saw when we were kids, and you're laughing at points, you're scared at other points, but that one I remember seeing and being like, this is a really funny movie. More so because it's not a scary film as far as John Landis, the way he directed it, it's such a great movie. It's not like gonna keep me up at night thinking about like worrying there's a werewolf outside,
right?
But it accomplished so much. And the one I always remember is this kid running up to his mom and tugging on her after the guy, he steals that kid's balloon.
Oh, right.
He's like, sorry, kid. And he's like, a naked American man stole my balloon. just floored it. People laughing so hard.
And it still holds up. I saw it again quite recently, and it's still the special effects still look fantastic, and it still has the scary moments, and it's really funny. I think it is definitely a classic.
Definitely.
I can't bring myself to watch an American Werewolf in Paris.
I saw like the first 5 minutes and I checked out.
Yeah.
I didn't want to bother with it. No, I can't imagine it being anywhere near as good because I don't know who the director is, but it definitely wasn't John Landis. No. That's for sure. Let's see, moving along. Let's bring back zombies again. Zombieland. Zombieland was pretty good too. It was a lot of fun.
With Bill Murray.
That scene was just too good.
Really great. And I like Jesse Eisenberg. And and that was one of the first films I remember seeing him where he was quite funny, because otherwise, he can do the dramatic stuff as well. But yeah, Zombieland is great. I like spoofing of zombies because I just think they're inherently funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
And slow, and
Woody Harrelson is so the right guy that you want to be in a zombie apocalypse
Yes.
with. He's so funny, and I love that the end of the movie took place in an amusement park.
Yes.
And you can still hope to get the girl at the same time you're fighting off these zombies. But maybe the best cameo of all time in any movie is the Bill Murray scene. And the way that scene plays itself out is
so good.
just hysterical when they pull up to the gate and you know something's coming. And then you see the BM and you're like, wait, is it Bette Midler? What is this? And the fact that it's Bill Murray and he actually shows up in the movie because they tease it, they're just hanging out at Bill Murray's house. Then he walks in and he has such a fun time doing it. And if you remember that movie, they reference it's Bill Murray. They reference Ghostbusters, and it's Bill Murray, and he also references seeing Eddie Van Halen play at the Hollywood Bowl, and it's like the best 5 minutes of my movie watching career.
The closest I think we'll ever get to seeing Bill Murray get back into a Ghostbusters outfit, I think, for sure.
Can you call Ghostbusters a horror comedy?
I think so, yeah, especially the opening scene is actually pretty terrifying with the librarian. I think a little bit,
Really
a little bit of horror comedy, but not too much.
When I was young, it was pretty damn scary.
Yeah.
Even at the end, Stay Puft Guy, I was like, ugh.
I even think the second one with Vigo was pretty creepy to me, at least.
I
the
agree.
green
The Carpathian.
Carpathian. Let me ask you guys this: are you a big Sam Raimi fan?
Yes,
You are?
I'm a huge fan of anybody who wears that on their sleeve as much as he does. Like, you can say whatever you want about Spider-Man 3, but that guy is such a fan of cinema that he cares about it. He's never going to be a guy that mails in his work. It may not always pull off the way that you want it to be or the way that he envisioned it, but he cares about his content so much. And obviously, you can't talk about horror comedies without bringing up Ash and the Evil Dead franchise, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. What Sam Raimi accomplished with that was it inspired an entire generation of filmmakers to make the horror comedies, something like Cabin in the Woods that we get to celebrate today.
Well, here's a little reveal for you. On Indie Spotlight, we did a Indie Picks where we had to admit to a famous indie film that we've never seen. I've never seen Evil Dead.
Oh, really?
Never. No, never seen any of them.
Oh, treat yourself.
And I know I should and I have to and it'll be great. So I definitely want to.
So here's the thing. That's why I always feel bad about this because I'm not the biggest fan. I mean, I like Sam Raimi. I do, and I appreciate his work, but I'm not the biggest Evil Dead fan. I saw the movie more recently for the first time, like a couple years ago, and I maybe it's just that I was too late on it or anything, but I was just kind of like, well, it's okay. And I haven't seen Army of Darkness. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Just go ahead and unplug this stuff.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
See yourself out.
And when you brought up Drag Me, you brought up Drag Me to Hell too, and I wasn't a fan of that movie either.
Okay, now let's talk about Drag Me to Hell because Evil Dead 2 is the best of that franchise, and I didn't actually hate the Evil Dead remake. I thought they did some cool things with it. They made it bloody. They used a lot of practical effects, which I appreciated. So it was actually stuff you're seeing play out. But Drag Me to Hell, and I've heard other people say this too. I thought it was just genuinely terrifying. That scene when she's in the room upstairs and you hear the hoofs walking up the stairs, something like that, or something like the way the old woman looks when she curses her at the bank. It's just there's so much
Even
scary
in the car,
shit in there.
I was scared of the car scene. There was a lot of scary moments in that movie, and I actually liked it more than I thought I would. I went in thinking this is not going to be good. It's just going to be another horror film, and I knew that Sam Raimi was directing it, but not have seen Evil Dead. I was like, I don't know, and then I thought it was fantastic.
And
Octavia was great.
The opening credits scene, there's some instrument. I don't know what the instrument is. I feel bad for it. That they always use in horror movies to scare the crap out of you. It's like a creaky old violin. It's like
the Insidious opening.
Yeah. I don't know who they hired to play that stuff. I don't know what that instrument is, but it's what the electric guitar is to rock and roll. That instrument is to scaring the shit out of us at horror movies. Why didn't you like Drag Me to Hell?
I don't know. I need to rewatch it again. It's been such a long time since I've seen it. Maybe I think just the style was a little bit maybe just too much for me because
there's a lot of spiders.
There was a lot of spiders. I will say though that the very end scene, the train track, that was pretty terrifying. I won't spoil or anything, but I don't know. I have to go back and rewatch it. It might have been just maybe some of the special effects stuff didn't really work for me because I know how Sam Raimi is good with practical, and that movie might have been CGI heavy. I don't remember too much, but I don't know. It was kind of maybe like it was like too goofy. not too serious. I don't know. Maybe I went in with different expectations. But I will say I like seeing Justin Long. I like seeing Justin Long in horror films for some reason because he was also in Jeepers Creepers, and that's one of my favorite horror films.
And Tusk too.
Tusk.
Oh, Tusk too. I just saw that recently
That's
too.
a screwed up movie.
Very, very, very different. Very, very different. But yeah, I don't.
It has some funny moments.
Yeah.
In Tusk, particularly the lead up to it. I think when you finally see him at the end, it's really disturbing, and I'll never look at him in the same way ever again.
No.
But I went in there, and the first time I saw it, I hated it, and I saw it for a second time, I actually liked it a lot more.
Yeah, I appreciate what Kevin Smith was able to do with that movie. That's one of those films where you watch it, and I liked watching it. I might appreciate the effort more than the actual product or how it resolves itself, but you know, the guy, he's doing a podcast and he decides to go up and he's such a cocky asshole.
Yeah.
And the interaction that he's having with that creepo in his house, you know something bad is coming. But you just don't know how bad it's going to be. Those are my favorite scenes in that movie when it's leading up to what ultimately is going to become of him.
Yeah, and I love the ringtone that he has. Al Pacino. Come on now, more margaritas.
Of course, you need
theme song.
margaritas. Yes, that should be your theme song. This is kind of not so serious one, but Nicholas McGleary says, "Does the Wicker Man remake count as a horror comedy?" I've never seen it. I've never seen it.
I've seen it once, and it does, because watching Nicolas Cage do something like that it's an unintentional horror comedy.
Yeah.
In the same way that like Season of the Witch might be a horror comedy where. There's something about Nicolas Cage though. Like, even when he's in a horrible movie, I watch the movie.
Yeah,
I
totally.
In there.
Yeah,
he's got something about him that he just makes you want to keep coming back because you're just waiting for him to have that next words or not the bees kind of moment. Yeah.
He's so unexpected. You never know how he's going to play a particular line or a scene. That's what I like about Cage. You just never know where he's going to take it.
Right.
And he hasn't turned into a spoof of himself yet, like Hasselhoff or Gary Busey or somebody like that. When every time they show up in a movie, you know they're just making fun of themselves. Like, you know, Nicolas Cage in his mind still believes that he's committing 100% to this and he cares about the craft. So even when it doesn't work out, it's fun for us to watch.
It's fun for us to watch. Absolutely. We'll wrap things up in a little bit here, but I wanted to bring this up because a lot of horror films today, and you have this problem a lot too, that they're just not that scary anymore. Really, a lot of, I mean, what's the last horror film that actually like messed with you that you couldn't sleep at night and that it was just absolutely terrifying?
I did a review. I thought Insidious 3 was better than I thought it would be. As far as a straight horror film, there was more scary things in there than I thought would be. When I watched Unfriended, which is not a great horror movie, but I saw it by myself, as usually happens with horror movies where Christian is not available for whatever reason.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
How you doing?
Yeah, I know you're a fan.
Just saying. Or Cody. He's a fan too.
You guys are always welcome to do the review with me when Christian's not there, which is going to be an ample amount of opportunity with upcoming HorrorFlix. But I saw Unfriended by myself, and I came home and I was shooting the review solo that night in this scary studio. And while I was filming it, the temperature in the room got 10 degrees cooler. I heard something making noise in the closet right over there. No idea what the hell it was. You can actually watch the review.
Yeah, I remember this.
And it's not me trying to be funny, like, oh no, it was genuinely what was happening at the moment. And as I'm like the end of the video and I'm doing the plugs, like, hey, make sure you comment on this review.
Right.
I can feel shit on my neck. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I gotta shoot the review, but I gotta get the hell out of here too. Just it freaked me out. It's not that scary of a movie, but
right.
It does some cool things.
Yeah.
And Unfriended, it borrowed the concept, which I didn't realize until after I saw it, from another movie that did something very similar, but I liked the way that they pulled it off.
Oh, right. I didn't know that. I thought it was quite clever. It's kind of like a new style of found footage.
Yeah.
Where everything's on the computer and everything's real time, and it points out how we use our computer and how we might be different personalities on different parts of social media. And I said to my mum after I saw that movie at Fantastic Fest, which you should really go to
Fantastic Fest
in Austin sometime, because it's all genre movies.
And
there's a lot of horror films there.
I need to look into that.
And so I saw it, and then I called my mum and I was like, I can't Skype you anymore. Maybe we'll just FaceTime or something.
Yeah. That's why I never trust Skype anyways. No.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I can't really. The Paranormal Activity was one that really messed with my mind, but in more recent years, it's just like, I mean, Babadook, I just watched it recently. I don't think it's as scary as a lot of people make it out to be, but it's just creepy imagery.
I feel the same exact way with Babadook. It was a very well-made film, but it didn't get its hooks into me. Same thing with It Follows. It was a very well-made movie, but it did I was still gonna have sex after it. You know?
Yeah, of course.
Never again.
I mean, if somebody would consent, I would have sex.
No, of course, absolutely.
Never doing
Yeah.
it again.
That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not. It
Never
follows.
having sex again.
Really?
No.
Yeah.
It
No,
scared you
I
that
was
much?
I was really scared. I mean, there hasn't been any opportunities since, but no, it really did scare me the way it was shot. We talked about this before.
Yeah.
It Follows. I mean, I get scared easily, so I'd say recent films that scare me were like, It Follows, The Gift as well. I thought.
Oh,
was
that's
quite
right.
Creepy.
You just seen that one.
But Babadook scared me not because I was expecting that a monster was going to come, but I think it was more the psychological aspect.
Which is the scariest part of horror films in general to me. That's why I always go back to The Exorcist, where it's just trying to wrap your mind around that concept of just pure evil inhabiting somebody who didn't do anything wrong necessarily.
Right.
Ray was just a chick hanging out in Georgetown. The next thing you know, she's possessed. We got a whole to-do on our hands. I liked Unfriended and to a lesser extent It Follows, but also The Gift you brought up, because those movies actually make you a better human being. After you watch it, you get out, you're like, I'm going to make sure I'm not going to be a dick to anybody.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to be nice to everyone.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Well,
kill
cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything. I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of horror comedies. You guys have any other in mind?
The most recent horror comedy that I can think of right now that I saw was a couple years ago. They remade Fright Night. And
with Colin Farrell.
was a vampire, and David Tennant's performance. Colin Farrell was great too. David Tennant's performance as the pseudo magician that works in Vegas that might actually know something about killing vampires for real was so funny.
Oh, okay.
And Fright Night wasn't something that was screamed to be remade, but I actually liked the way they did the remake,
cool.
and I love the original too, with Roddy McDowall. But it was both of those films. If you love horror comedy, you're going to laugh a lot, and it's cool vampire lore. It's not the scariest movie in the world, but it's so David Tennant is so fucking funny in that show.
I actually haven't seen the
movie.
remake.
I
I've
haven't
seen the
seen that.
original, but not in a long time.
But I did love What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows. Did
which
you end
is
up
the
checking that one out?
Vampire
documentary.
Yeah.
So good. Very
So
dry.
funny. New Zealand.
New Zealand, I think everything they do horror, because they also did a movie called Housebound that I've talked about on the show a lot too. It's the same style. It's just very, very dry, but very witty. It's a lot of fun. You brought up vampires. Lost Boys. Lost Boys is
Right.
incredible.
Right.
I love talk about doing vampires right. I mean, Kiefer Sutherland, you do that drunk anything in any movie, I'm gonna watch it for sure.
Yes.
So good representation of vampires. I'm trying to think.
Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Some people brought that up as well. I know we're probably forgetting a bunch of.
Here we go.
What's it?
Monster Squad.
I never seen it.
Oh.
never seen
Wolfman
it.
has nards. It's Monster
never
Squad.
seen it.
It's one of those
I've
things.
seen it.
Remember when I was talking about how you imagine all these creatures that are
Right.
coming together and just hanging out at a party or something? Well, these kids, it's this band of kids, and all of a sudden Dracula and the Wolfman and the Mummy and the creature from the Black Lagoon, they all come back to life, and they all start attacking these kids, so these kids have to figure out how to kill them. And it's got kind of a Goonies feel to it. It was made in 87. It is totally dated in the way that you could never get away with the dialogue that happens. What is coming out of these kids' mouths is atrocious and should not be said by anybody today, but it's a really funny movie, and the concept is great.
I've heard you talk about it plenty of times. I just haven't got around to seeing it.
I have a shirt that has the Wolfman from Monster Squad on it, and it says "Got Nards." And when you see the movie,
Oh,
you'll get
okay.
it.
Okay,
Yeah,
now I
I've
get it.
seen
I think we'll bring up one more and then we'll wrap it up here. That I think a lot of us, not just us horror fans here, but everybody in Schmoeville wants to see is One Little Fucker. When are we going to see this? This is the only reason why I had you on the show is to convince you to show it.
Yeah, that title popped in my head when we started the show, and then I was like,
literally
oh,
just
yeah.
popped in when I think you said the F word. I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I was actually I starred in a horror comedy, if you want to call it that. I'm still actually pretty proud of it. I wanted to see what the experience of being a lead on a movie was.
Yeah.
So I tested for this thing, and I got the part, and I had a blast doing it. We shot it in this huge kind of warehouse, abandoned warehouse in Pasadena over 3 weeks, and in 2009 I think. And the shoot schedule was every day from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. And that place was so haunted. Everybody was terrified of shooting there. But the concept was that me and my buddy, played by Max Mullion, were these two kind of dimwits, like a Harry and Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber kind of thing. And we were exterminators, and we were cleaning out this house, and lo and behold, we see this thing this creature that we come upon, and it is like an evil gremlin-y kind of thing, and the only way to pacify it is that it loves weed. It loves getting high. And so we find it, and we were like fucking with it, and we give it a joint, and it takes a toke, and it just becomes a fun thing to play with. So when it has weed, it's kind of like a mogwai. Then when it runs out of weed, it turns into a gremlin. We bring it to a Halloween party, and hell ensues. It's a horrible movie. It is not a good movie. I think that the way that they pitched it was to make it more of a horror than a comedy, even though elements were both in it. But I had a blast making it because me and Max got to improvise pretty much 80% of the movie.
That's cool.
And we were buddies. So I think the comedic elements of it really work. The horror, not so much. It's not going to scare anybody.
Right.
But I'm still proud of it in a weird, sick way. And I don't know if it's available anywhere. And I don't even know if I have a copy. I'm sure my mom probably has a copy of it somewhere. But I'll try to dig it up because I know our buddy Josh McCouga was in was also in a horror movie called Plasterhead, I think.
Yeah, and he was with one of the Corys, right?
Oh yeah.
Corey Feldman?
I
I'm pretty
think
sure he's
so,
in it.
I
yeah.
think so.
Yeah, so we might have to do like a film,
Yeah,
a
we
mini
should.
film
Double
festival.
feature.
Yeah, and Hoop, my love interest in Little Fucker is Ariel Toombs, who is the daughter of the late great Roddy Piper. So
There you go.
Yeah, so and she was great to work with. So it was a fun shoot, and it's
Nice.
a horrible movie, and maybe we will do a screening
I
at
wanna
some
see
point.
it.
So.
If we don't see it, I believe the trailer is up on YouTube. You guys can check it out.
Trailer's definitely
Right?
up on YouTube.
And then can we schmo it?
And then we can all
see
schmo it
You
afterwards.
guys are more than welcome to, and do
Do a
not hold
review.
back.
Awesome. Well, every week we usually do, when we wrap up the show, it's either a Netflix recommendation or a segment called Bedtime Stories, which is where a lot of the fans will send in scary stories that they have experienced themselves. We've heard stuff from cults, ghosts. People literally sent us pictures with marks on them from some
sweet.
creepy stuff happening.
Oh.
So I haven't read this one, so we'll see what it has to do with an app. So this one comes from Michael Durand. He says, around last year, me and my friend Townsley found an app on the App Store called Inception. The app, so I wanted to test it out. Now let me say I don't get scared easily, but my friend Townsley does.
I love that name, by the way.
Townsley.
Yeah.
It's so Stephen King for some reason. So how the app works is that you unlock levels and it plays the score from Inception and says it works just like the movie, but I didn't believe it. So that day before Townsley got to my house, I was just playing around with the app and unlocked a few levels. So he got there and I told him that I was going to use this and all I wanted for him to do was watch me and make sure I'm okay. So around midnight we began. He started the first level, and I don't remember anything at all. Second level, still nothing that I know of. Third, my friend said I started to thrash in my bed. Finally, something happens. I was walking down the street with Townsley, going to the fair, which is where we plan to go the next day, and everything was normal until Townsley turned to me and said, "Just so you know, you're dreaming." And I was flabbergasted by this and said, "What?" And he answered me saying, "Yeah, this is all a dream and you're going to wake up now." And I woke up freezing cold in my room, sweating bullets, so I asked Townsley what happens, and he said that I was thrashing so hard he thought I was possessed. Needless to say, I haven't used the app since.
Wow.
That's pretty interesting.
That's weird.
That's not so much scary. That's just pretty cool. I might have to
Yeah.
download this app, and I think we're going to try it out
so
right
how
after.
do you get to the next level? It plays the
you're
music
asleep?
as you're falling asleep?
I think so, yeah. And then
Oh,
just
like the wake up music.
maybe like the kick
The
or
kick,
whatever that
yeah,
it was that he finally woke up.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
That is interesting.
That app is downloaded tonight, and if I die, Michael, tonight, that is your fault. So I want to thank my guests, Alicia and Mark. Thank you guys so much for coming on. This was a blast. I'm so glad that finally got to have you on again, and I can't wait to have more with you guys.
I love talking horror movies, and you guys are two of my best buds, so let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. So bless you.
That's
bless
me
you.
saying thank you.
You guys can follow them both on Twitter at Alicia Malone, at 5150 Ellis. Check out Ellis's little YouTube channel, Schmoes Know. Definitely subscribe to that, which I'm pretty sure most of you are. Alicia Malone's Movie Minute is on there.
Yeah,
What's
my-
your YouTube channel, Alicia Malone?
It's Movies on My Jam.
Movies are my jam. There you go. And then you guys can subscribe to us on iTunes, the Schmoes Know podcast channel. Review us, rate us, comment down below if you're watching this on the Schmoes Know podcast channel. All the support is really incredible. We love you guys, and we appreciate all the support you guys give us. So thank you so much. Don't download Inception on the App Store, and have a good day.
Bye.